Hi. There's a specific type of horror that doesn't make you want to scream, but rather makes you want to silently look over your shoulder. When you watch something truly terrifying, you feel uncomfortable, anxious, and sometimes even physically uneasy, but it's impossible to turn it off. And it's exactly these kinds of series that hook you the most. Not cheap jump scares or disposable teen slashers, but stories that crush you with their atmosphere, paranoia, broken psychology, and the lingering feeling that something in this world is going terribly wrong. Today is all about them. 10 series that make your home feel just a little too quiet, and even the familiar sounds of your apartment start to feel wrong. Have you ever wondered why this series is named the way it is? Black Mirror. Just turn off the screen of your phone, tablet, or TV and look at it. It's a cold, dark reflection. Charlie Brooker didn't just invent sci-fi about technology, he created a show about the nightmares we've almost slipped into without even noticing. And the most unsettling part is that the evil here rarely stems from the devices themselves. Technology merely accelerates, exposes, and pushes to the absolute limit the darkness that has always existed within people. Every episode is a separate world and a separate life, but they are all united by the same sticky sense of discomfort. You are shown a reality that is literally just 5 minutes ahead of ours, and that is exactly what sends a shiver down your spine. Imagine being able to record and replay every single memory. Sounds amazing, right? That is until you realize that jealousy, resentment, and paranoia now come in 4K resolution with an endless replay button. Or social rating systems where every smile is judged by bystanders and likes literally dictate whether you can rent an apartment. That's why the show hits so hard. It doesn't show some distant future. It shows a world that feels just a few steps away. An addiction to numbers, digital masks, living through a screen. All of this isn't fantasy anymore. It's practically everyday reality. That's what makes it so creepy, because there's far more recognizable truth here than we'd like to admit. You don't scream in terror, you just sit there during the credits with a heavy lump in your throat, trying to process what you just watched. Yes, not all episodes are pure horror. There's room for vicious satire and even bizarre, twisted romance. But that background hum of existential dread never fades for a second. It works especially well if you're not just looking for a quick scare, but for something that stays in your head long after the episode ends. Just be prepared, after some episodes, your phone screen suddenly starts looking not like a familiar object, but something a bit too personal and already slightly hostile. Let's leave the digital world behind and step into the wilderness. Imagine a classic setup. A plane crashes in the middle of nowhere. On board is a high school girls' soccer team, and they have to survive in the remote Canadian woods, far from civilization. Sounds familiar, but Yellowjackets refuses to play like a standard survival story. It works on 2 timelines at once. It shows the nightmare of the woods itself, and what that nightmare did to the survivors years later. One timeline is the 90s, where the schoolgirls slowly lose their humanity under the crushing weight of hunger, cold, and something strange hiding in the forest. The second is the present day, where the survivors have long since grown up, acquired families, jobs, and seemingly normal lives. Except the forest never truly left them. It just became a part of their adult faces, habits, and fears. And the best part is that the show keeps you guessing until the very end about what is supernatural and what is simply a shattered psyche. You're constantly left wondering what's actually happening here. Is there real forest mysticism at work, some ancient evil pressing in from the dark? Or is it mass hysteria, psychosis, and trauma tearing these girls apart from the inside? The show never gives you easy answers. It just keeps tightening the screws, showing how fast a thin layer of civilization falls away when people are starving. And in the end, the scariest part isn't even the teenage versions of these characters, it's the adults, because they've learned how to perform normality, go to meetings, pay bills, smile at people, while the woods are still right there inside them. It creates that rare case of a show that can be brilliant and deeply uncomfortable at the same time. And it's exactly these kinds of stories that hold on to you the longest. Packed with dark, vicious humor, a killer 90s alt-rock soundtrack, and phenomenal acting. You hate watching the decisions the characters make, but it's absolutely impossible to look away. Though it's better to warn you right now, the show gets incredibly brutal in places, not just physically, but psychologically. But if you love stories about how far someone can go when pushed to the brink of madness, Yellowjackets gets into your head fast and doesn't let go, like a splinter you can't stop feeling. But returning to civilization isn't always a relief. In fact, a perfect suburban home can be just as terrifying. They say a man's home is his castle, and the American dream of the 1950s was built exactly on that idea. A perfect lawn, a beautiful facade, friendly neighbors. But in the series Them, this pretty picture quickly starts looking not cozy, but threatening. The plot takes us to 1953 Los Angeles, where a black family moves from the Jim Crow South into a pristine, white, affluent suburb. They are looking for peace and trying to escape a heavy past, but what they encounter in their new home turns out to be far more terrifying than any ghost. Them is so unsettling because everyday cruelty and supernatural horror feed off each other. The first layer of horror isn't even supernatural, it's social. And the neighbors don't attack the family openly. They operate quietly and methodically, which makes it even scarier. Forced smiles, stares, vandalized property, polite cruelty, and the slow, systematic effort to push them out. And that's what makes you so uneasy. There's sunshine, manicured homes, and polite faces all around, yet it feels like people are being slowly suffocated inside a picture-perfect postcard. Then the second layer kicks in. Unexplainable things start happening inside the house itself, including sinister entities, shadows in the corners, and terrifying visions. The supernatural weaves into reality so tightly that the characters start losing their minds. And as a viewer, you sit there not knowing who to fear more, the demon in the basement or the sweet neighbor with a pie standing on the porch. Fair warning, this show is incredibly heavy, doesn't spare the audience, rarely lets you breathe, and leaves a residue that lingers long after you finish watching. This isn't a fun horror ride, it's a slow suffocation that doesn't end when the episode cuts to black. From the suffocating horror of a single neighborhood, let's zoom out to an entire city under a biological siege. If some creators pressure your psyche in enclosed spaces, Guillermo del Toro prefers scale, biology, and the healthy dose of slime. The Strain warns you right away. There are no beautiful vampires here, as vampirism isn't a curse or a gothic romance, it's a vile infection. And the show introduces that idea in a brilliantly atmospheric way. A plane lands at JFK Airport. The lights are off, there's no communication, and inside there is dead silence as epidemiologists from the CDC board the craft. What they find triggers a chain reaction that brings New York to its knees in a matter of days. And in the creature design, you immediately feel the touch of people who truly care that a monster looks not just cool, but repulsive. The local vampires, called Strigoi here, are disgusting. They don't have fangs, but instead a 6-foot stinger shoots out of their throats. They lose their human traits and are driven purely by instinct, while the series expertly balances sci-fi, epidemiological thriller, and pure fun pulp fiction. Yes, there's room for melodrama here, and there's an old vampire hunter with a silver katana taking monsters apart. There's an exterminator who knows the underground tunnels better than anyone. True, at times the show veers almost into action territory, but it never loses its sense of dread. It's dirty, fast-paced, visceral, and intentionally stripped of elegance, which is exactly why it works so well. For people who want something fast, large-scale, and visceral, The Strain might hit even harder than many more serious horrors because it doesn't pretend to be subtle. It dives straight into the muck, blood, and panic of a major city. After that massive scale, let's dial it back to something much more intimate, but no less broken. Speaking of a shattered psyche, it's impossible to ignore this project. We all know who Norman Bates is. Alfred Hitchcock locked Norman Bates into film history back in 1960. So at first you think, Why do we need a prequel? We already know how it ends. But that exact knowledge is where the main terror of Bates Motel lies. You look at Norman and almost immediately realize that nothing peaceful will come of this story. And that's exactly what makes you uncomfortable, because you can sense the impending disaster right from the start. The series brings the action to the present day, but maintains a timeless, suffocating atmosphere. Norma Bates, Norman's mother, buys an old motel in a quiet coastal town to start with a clean slate, and Vera Farmiga plays Norma in such a way that it's simultaneously hard to look away from her and makes you want to keep your distance. She's hysterical, manipulative, and loves her son so morbidly and suffocatingly that it literally becomes hard to breathe when she's around. The entire show rests on their relationship. It's not love in the traditional sense, but a toxic codependency where both have long forgotten the line between care and destruction. They hide secrets from each other, they lie, and protect one another from the whole world, destroying their own minds in the process. The quiet town of White Pine Bay where they settle isn't so simple either. Behind the facade of friendly neighbors hide drug cartels, corrupt cops, and bloody secrets. But all this criminal background serves only one purpose: to show how external chaos pushes Norman closer to the edge. While Freddie Highmore plays Norman so brilliantly that a single look can perfectly capture both a confused teenager and something truly alarming. His shifts from a timid boy to something cold, detached, and frightening give you goosebumps. This isn't a story about a maniac with a knife in the traditional sense. It's a slow and very unpleasant series about how a personality cracks from the inside. And the further he goes, the clearer it becomes that there's no going back from this. The scariest part is that the show doesn't hide the disaster. It makes you watch that disaster slowly turn into something inevitable. Now, let's radically change the scenery and timeline. Now we jump to medieval Korea during the Joseon era, where at first everything looks like an elegant historical drama about the palace, conspiracies, and the struggle for power. An ailing ruler, a crown prince, and advisors with far too many of their own interests. But very quickly, this story stops being a political intrigue and turns into a genuine nightmare. A disease that forces the dead to rise and tear apart everything living. Western cinema has conditioned us to a specific image of the zombie apocalypse: abandoned supermarkets, shotguns, tough guys in leather jackets, and it is precisely on this contrast that the series operates most powerfully. Incredibly beautiful, detailed costumes, silk robes, ceremonial swords, and all of it gets drenched in liters of blood in the impassable mud of provincial villages. The infected here don't shuffle slowly, they sprint with terrifying speed. They bunch together into mad, screaming waves of bodies that are impossible to escape. But what makes the series truly powerful isn't even the action, but the theme of hunger. On one hand, the literal hunger of the infected who had nothing to eat even when they were alive. On the other, the hunger for power that drives the aristocracy. And sometimes the people in the palace are scarier than anything waiting in the dark. During the day, the heroes can exhale, build barricades, and look for allies. But the moment the sun touches the horizon, the tension skyrockets. Along with the characters, you start dreading nightfall. It's a rare case where a series looks expensive, moves at breakneck speed, and yet never loses the feeling of a genuine catastrophe. Almost everything here is beautiful, except death itself. From the massive blood-soaked landscapes of medieval Korea, let's shrink things down to one claustrophobic setting: a luxurious Philadelphia townhouse. And yes, M. Night Shyamalan is all over the tone of this one. The man who wrote the book on mysteries and tension acts as an executive producer here and sets the overall tone. Servant has a premise so out there that at first you can't even believe the show can actually pull it off. A successful couple loses their newborn child. The mother cannot cope with the grief and her mind simply shuts down. To bring her out of catatonia, a psychotherapist suggests using a realistic reborn doll, and it works. The mother starts believing the doll is her living son. Her husband plays along to avoid another breakdown, but the madness reaches a whole new level when they hire a young nanny for this doll, and the nanny arrives and starts acting as if the child is completely real. From there, the series starts suffocating you with silence. Everyone understands that something abnormal is happening, but no one is capable of saying it out loud. And the viewer ends up locked within these walls with them, surrounded by strange camera angles, pregnant pauses, and mounting insanity. Dorothy's husband, played by Toby Kebbell, and her brother, played magnificently by Rupert Grint, try to figure out who this girl is, where she came from, and what on earth is going on. Unexplainable, terrifying things begin to happen in the house, but the paradox of the series is that it manages to be not only scary, but also wildly funny. What makes it even better is that the show also knows how to make you laugh nervously through absurdity, awkwardness, and that feeling that everything has completely gone off the rails, while a separate layer of discomfort comes from the food. The cooking here is filmed in such a detailed and visceral way that at times it becomes almost physically unpleasant. Chopping meat, crunching bones, boiling oil, it all serves as a metaphor for the tension boiling within their family. Servant plays a constant game of cat and mouse with the viewer. You are constantly building theories, constantly doubting who is actually crazy and who is the real evil. So this is a series for those who need more than just horror. They need a story that keeps making them doubt whether they understand anything at all. If that was a closed-door mystery, our next story starts as a grounded, open-and-shut police investigation before turning reality on its head. If there is an author whose books are butchered on screen as often as they are adapted, it's Stephen King. But The Outsider is the rare case where the adaptation actually works, starting as a very solid, grounded detective story. A horrific crime occurs in the small town. A child is murdered, and all the evidence, witnesses, and camera footage point to one man, the local baseball coach, a respectable family man everyone knows. The police arrest him as harshly and publicly as possible. Case closed, right? Not quite, as the coach has an ironclad 100% alibi. Video recordings confirm that at the time of the murder, he was hundreds of miles away from the city. And this is where the show gets its hooks into you. How can a person be in two places at once? Detective Ralph Anderson, a tired man crushed by his own grief who relies solely on facts, starts digging. And the deeper he plunges into this case, the more his familiar worldview bursts at the seams. At first, it behaves like a gritty detective show, but then it slowly starts to break your sense of reality. Viewers aren't bombarded with monsters in the first episode. You are forced to doubt, to look for logic where there is none left, and to feel the exact same helplessness as the main characters. This show feels like a room that hasn't had fresh air in it for years. Cold tones, long camera pans, oppressive silence. The grief in this series is almost tangible, passing like a virus from one family to the next. The Outsider doesn't try to scare you with loud noises, it terrifies you with the realization that there are things in this world against which guns, laws, and common sense are entirely powerless. It is a very slow, thoughtful piece of cinema, so don't expect brisk action or constant motion. It's tuned to a completely different kind of dread. But if you appreciate dark, paranoid despair and stories where evil can't be explained away in a police report, then The Outsider will probably hit you hard. And perhaps the most unpleasant part here is that after watching, the world doesn't feel scarier afterward, just a little harder to understand. From the incomprehensible evil of a small-town murder, let's transition to a completely different kind of spiritual infection. The creator of The Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman, decided to swap zombies for demons, and that gave us Outcast. This is one of the bleakest series about possession ever made, and its strength lies in almost entirely stripping away the usual horror tropes of Latin chanting, flashy rituals, and church theatrics. Here, possession doesn't feel like a flashy horror attraction, but rather like a prolonged tragedy that slowly corrodes people from the inside. Kyle Barnes has spent his whole life drawing darkness to him, and demons have ruined his mother's life, his wife's life, and his own. Now he lives like a recluse in a filthy house, unkempt, barely speaking to anyone. He is broken. But when strange things start happening in town again, the local reverend, deeply flawed and hard drinking by the way, asks Kyle for help because Kyle has a gift, or a curse. He can exorcise these entities, and one of the best moves the show makes is that exorcisms here feel less like religious rites and more like dirty physical brawls. It's not a triumph of faith, but a grueling fight with something that refuses to let go of a body. And the series takes its time. It is soaked in an atmosphere of rust, cheap whiskey, and hopelessness. The color palette is consistently dull, and the characters' faces are exhausted. You can literally feel the cold and dampness on your skin. There are no cheap jump scares here. All the terror is built on the feeling that evil doesn't reside in hell. It walks right next to you, smiles at you in the store, and says hello at the gas station. At any moment, a neighbor or relative could turn out to be an empty shell. It's a very unhurried series with a heavy mood that doesn't try to appeal to everyone. But for fans of dark, contemplative, supernatural stories, this usually hits the spot perfectly. It doesn't try to overwhelm you, it just slowly poisons the air. And finally, if you think you've seen it all and nothing can truly scare you anymore, it's time for some uncompromising French horror. French horror has its own temperament. It doesn't care about making the viewer comfortable, and it almost never softens the blow. They don't smooth out the edges, and they hit your nerves so hard it takes your breath away. After Marianne, even walking down a dark hallway at night starts to feel like a bad idea. At the center of the story is Emma, a successful writer. She made a fortune off a series of horror novels about an evil witch named Marianne. And Emma is edgy, cynical, drinks too much, and frankly quite unpleasant at times. But one day, a childhood friend comes to her, does something horrific, and claims that Marianne is forcing her to do it. The writer has to return to her bleak, cold, coastal hometown to confirm that everything she wrote wasn't just fiction. The witch is real, and she is incredibly angry. The secret weapon of this series is Madame d'Augeron, an elderly woman possessed by the witch, and every time she appears on screen, it's a direct assault on your nervous system. Her smile, her glassy stare, her jagged movements, everything about her evokes a very primal, almost instinctual fear, and you simply want to look away when she's on screen. The creators play masterfully with light, shadows, and the geometry of the frame, knowing exactly when to execute a sharp scare and when to force you to peer into the darkness until your eyes ache. Marianne has a very strange tone. It can start like a typical European drama, abruptly shift into absurdly black comedy, and then hit you with a scene of such cruelty and darkness that you forget how to breathe. It's a vicious fairy tale with no Hollywood gloss. Characters make mistakes, argue, and betray each other. The sea is always gray, and the wind knocks you off your feet. So if you feel like you've seen everything the horror genre has to offer, just give the first few episodes a chance. Marianne very quickly reminds you that horror is still capable of genuinely getting under your skin. There's no unnecessary melodrama here, no pandering, just cruelty, confidence, and control. So yeah, that's the list. Maybe the best horror isn't the kind that just scares you. It's the kind that leaves behind something unpleasantly familiar. When the credits roll, you're no longer screaming or flinching. You just sit in silence, wondering what exactly got to you so deeply. If you've seen anything from this list, be sure to let us know in the comments which series stuck with you the most. And if you have a personal favorite that doesn't just scare you, but truly crawls under your skin, drop it in the comments too. We'll put together another list like this. But that's all for today. And hey, if after this you suddenly don't want to turn off the lights right away, consider that these shows did exactly what they came to do.